Good afternoon. How are you?
Very good, Charles. Thanks
Awesome.
for having me in your show and your podcast. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining me on the Q.A.C. team podcast coming from New Mexico.
hmm
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's get started and tell our audience who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Georges Cordoba, and I'm a holistic health coach. Previously, I was a CTO, Chief Technology Officer. That's about almost 8 years ago. I made a transition to health and wellness. And that's because I was, as a CTO, I got inflicted with cancer. I was diagnosed with advanced cancer, melanoma, and it was quite a trip. For me, it was an amazing battle. It was a 10-year battle and 10 surgeries, and four of them, because I did have metastasis in the brain, four craniotomies of those 10 surgeries, two gamma knives, and through that process, one thing happened. I had no idea how much that was going to uh, influence my career.
Mhm.
Obviously, it gets to a point you go and, but it gets to a point where you're really there and not there. You're worrying about surviving. And at the
Yeah.
time that I was diagnosed, I'm sorry. We had five young children. We were blessed. We are blessed with five. Now they're adults, and the little one, Claudia, just turned 30. We are grandparents. But at that time, that added a lot of anxiety inside of me because I have to now deal with this disease. I was diagnosed 3 weeks after my mother passed of cancer.
Oh,
And yeah, when I look at the, I'm half Greek, by the way. I'm from Caracas, Venezuela, originally, South America. My parents migrated from Spain and Greece after World War II, and the two families met in Venezuela. And here I've been in the States since 1980. I came with
yes.
a full scholarship to play tennis, NCAA Division One tennis, here in Las Cruces, New Mexico. That's my where I got my degree. But going back to the experience, it got to a point that I started to lose some key resources in very important projects. I was in in Miami, Florida, and we had some great projects with Royal Caribbean Cruises, Celebrity Cruises. We were putting the internet cafes in there. I mean, I had a long career. I was always in technology. I studied software engineering. But on year 8 of my battle with cancer, it was always like, thank God for the surgeries. If not, you and I, Charles, would not be talking.
Yeah.
I have not, I mean, it's just, I was blessed with great surgeons, particularly the neurosurgeon. But on year 8, after my second craniotomy, they gave me finally this pill that was quote unquote, uh, basically approved by the FDA. $1,000 per pill, by the way. It was
Yeah.
capsules. Yeah.
Very expensive.
Oh man. And I was actually, I mean, you're talking 8 years with that, other chemos, and I myself look up some stuff on the internet. I told my oncologist, look, why don't we try this? It is non-invasive, it's a peptide. The bottom line, but even those, we did it for a year. Each injection that I have to put on myself um, subcutaneously, daily, 15 days, and then I'll take a break. Those were also $1,000 each. But going back to year 8, and they said, look, this chemotherapy, we found a way to penetrate the brain because the brain is very, very cautious of what it allows to go in there.
Mhm.
So I started. The whole thing was one capsule Monday through Friday, take
Mhm.
the weekend off, and then that was going to be 3 weeks. On my second Monday, my sixth capsule, I really thought I was going to have a heart attack. I mean, my heart went, I mean, it was pumping all over the place. It looked like I had some sort of drug that had me over the roof, and I got dizzy, and I'm a person of faith. And at that time, my wife was in the house, and the kids were in school. But I basically just sat down and waited for my wife to come home. Then we went together. She drove me. I wasn't feeling good to a church. I went to a chapel, and I basically surrendered myself to God because they were trying. But this is 8 years surgery, you know, treatment, remission, recurrence, surgery, treatment, remission, recurrence. And so I had this, and by the way, I tell my clients, our best coach is our intuition, our gut feeling, which we lose the faith of it or the power through the years since we're youngsters. But
Right.
I did manage to really, listen to this gut feeling I had, and so praying, I just say, Lord, I'm going to stop this. This is not working for me. It's been 8 years. We're broke. Thank God I was still, drawing a good salary, but you
Yeah,
know,
not to cut you off, right? But I want to ask you, so you're still working in the corporate world when this happened, correct? You weren't
yes,
doing what you're doing, yeah. So I
yes,
wanted to talk about that. So this all happened and you're still working, trying to deal with this, correct?
yes, I did. I
Yeah,
did try. Yes, that's a
yeah.
great point. I first of all, I said, I was going to beat the odds. I will be the first member of my Greek family because when I look at the landscape, I lost my grandparent, my sister, my grandparents from that, my grandfather,
Mm,
my grandmother's two sisters, and he went along my mother's brother, my
mm,
godfather, which was my mother's cousin, and then my mother. And then I get diagnosed at 3 weeks after she passes. At that time, I was already, Charles, probably on my fifth, sixth year as a CTO. I
mm,
was actually, I moved from twice as a CTO and got into with helping this startup go into market. And
mm.
then, I was actually a technology consultant. But once they went to market, they said, "Why don't you come in and work with us?" And they gave me a very nice offer. So I did
Yeah,
that. But we
yeah,
think I always say this, we make plans and God laughs at us because sometimes what we think we're gonna do, it doesn't happen.
our
For
plans
me,
change.
and for me, that
Absolutely.
was the case, man.
Yeah,
I had to, it was nobody wants to be diagnosed with
yeah,
cancer, but
absolutely.
at that time when I remembered, I feared the disease, and plus, no one in my family tree survived. So I made
Yeah,
myself that challenge. I
right.
saw cancer as my toughest opponent. But going back to work, I managed to do it for 2 years. I mean,
Mhm.
the first 2 years of the 10-year battle, but things started to get tougher. And so I had to make a decision. I lost key, like I told you, I had to miss time, then I had surgery, just
Yeah,
recuperating time.
right.
And so I wasn't there, George wasn't 100% there managing his teams and projects. And so what happened is I had a lot of extra anxiety trying to replace some key employees. My architect, two ladies that were amazing business analysts, and then one of my star programmers. And they probably thought, Georges is not going to come back, and they're not really in this project. They were key projects, and so for me, probably, I don't know, it was on my second, third year, I decided, you know what, I need to go home. And what I did, we set up a deal that I will help them get a replacement, and I would go work as a consultant from home. At least I
Yeah.
had some revenue coming in,
Right.
because
Yeah.
yeah, this thing is
Yeah.
it was a financial tsunami. We had to tap into college funds for the kids, 5 kids,
Right.
uh,
Yeah, I can
four,
imagine.
yeah,
Yeah.
401k and IRAs.
Yeah.
We had to go into that.
Now, when you're working from home, right? So this starts the transition of stepping away from the corporate world, now doing your thing you're doing now. So this is
hmm
a transition part to where, we say, okay, so this is the point where you decide to be a business owner and you chose this industry now of your health and vitality, correct?
Absolutely.
So
I,
tell
I
us
was,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, I had a couple of two major leap of faith situations on year 8 when I going back to that experience with my sixth capsule. That's when I made a decision that I was going to go natural. I was going to stop conventional treatment, and I was going to take the holistic health road to heal,
Nice.
which happened. This past July was my 12th year free of cancer,
Wow.
and but
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank
absolutely.
you so much. And then 7 years ago, a little over now, it was in October, I made a decision to jump from technology to health and wellness. However, it seems like, oh, you just jumped and then started. For about 2 years, I was already getting myself ready, getting diplomas in health coaching, mastering in transformational coaching, and that way. So I started already with some good stuff to help clients, and
Right.
as I in this past 7 years, mind you, I had my degree in bachelor's degree in computer science, and then I had an MBA from the University of Miami, paid by Accenture. I was working at that time with Accenture, and started my career with IBM. But that was 25 years of a very nice career. I love to create software to help companies improve their bottom line and resolve things. But since I was little, I always had this thing about helping people. I don't know, that came with me. That's one of my talents, I guess. And
Yeah, I was going
so,
to say that sounds like you were already heading in this direction, especially when you said, your mind's already in that holistic transition.
yeah,
And what happened to you just seems to be part of the natural progression as life was taking you to go this
absolutely.
way because your path is now shooting off to the right, saying, no more IT, man. You're going to health. You're going to health and vitality now, correct?
Yeah, I use it. I
Yeah,
use it a lot. I never stopped, and you and I know that, technology now changes almost monthly, man. It's and now with
yeah,
AI, but so I
yeah.
use it. I use it to market myself and stuff. But yeah, I made that leap of faith. Again, so I have doctors. One is even a surgeon. He grew up playing tennis with me. He
Oh,
went
great.
to UCLA. Yeah, and he was saying, "Oh, George, you," and his wife, she's a medical doctor, and they were saying, "No,
Mm.
no, no, George, don't stop. You're making a mistake." And I told him, "Look, I know it's not working for me.
Yeah,
I'm very connected from within." Which, by the
yeah.
way, I have to say, without really going on a tangent, that healing happens, Charles, from the inside out. And
1000% agree.
yes,
Yeah,
and so yeah, chemo and radio did not work for me,
yeah.
and I made that decision against everyone. However, now this doctor is one of two doctors that are in the credits for my book, best-selling book. I wrote a book about my experience, and
Mhm,
it goes through everything. Starting with traditional stuff and then going natural. But
mhm.
yeah, it wasn't such a rough decision. It was more, you know, uh, trying to convince my wife, who she's was at that time ultrasound tech at a Baptist hospital in Miami. Everybody was, no, no, George, you're making a mistake. And I didn't. In the credits, Dr. Stefan Miombet, he says that, Georges proved us all wrong.
Yeah.
And that made him begin to look into other ways, non-conventional ways, to heal. That
Yeah.
could be parallel to the normal conventional stuff, which is
Right.
what most of my clients do. I don't try to push them to do the same thing I did,
Mhm.
although there's 8 million Georges out there that made the decision to go natural. I know a few colleagues that are also coaching and helping
Mhm.
people. So, but
That's great.
yeah, took that took some, it took faith, and then starting
Yeah.
again after, like, starting from really from scratch, trying to created a company, Quale Vita, which means quality of life in
Right.
Latin. And I did I used to help a lot of startups, so I knew how to do my strategy and all this stuff. But
Yeah.
what I underestimated, Charles, was driving solo. I had teams,
Yeah.
below me, directors and managers. I had none of that, man. Started
You know,
solo.
it's cool to see, and that's why we have these conversations, why I interview people, because this is the part my interview that I love. Because here you are, you're in IT, you're technical, you're running, you're working for a corporation, you get sick, you get cancer, you're in a different direction, you're healing on your own. And now we get to talk about, what were those challenges that you faced? Because, you know, all of us go through these challenges and we're still going through them and I'm still growing and we're still learning. So tell us a little bit about, you're going through all this stuff with your life, with cancer and a new job, and now you transferred into your own thing. Tell us about some of the challenges that really were plaguing and are plaguing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, my first challenge was, well, how do I create my branding? I mean, I
Yeah.
started from scratch. I had to create why I'm doing this. Who am I helping? So I prepared all the stuff. I was helped by the Health Coach Institute. These guys are really good. They have two main offices, one in San Francisco and one in Chicago. And their coaching, their curriculum was awesome. Then I did the master's, mastery of transformational coaching. But I'm spending money that really didn't have. It was really a struggle because I was in a position that, and you guys, know this. I mean, everything is cool, everything is cool, but you got to
Right.
market yourself, and that takes a lot of money, a lot
A
of
lot of money
trial,
and some
trial and
time.
error too. you know,
Right. Money and time, right.
yeah. And so here I am, but I told you, person of faith. And when I was selected at one point to be in the national junior team for tennis,
Nice.
and they brought a guy from Yugoslavia. The country was not broken; it was right before the Balkans war, and this guy was an Olympian, and he was hired to help us learn how to do mental rehearsing, how to see ourselves being way back in the match and coming up and win it, or if something would bother you. My dad played Davis Cup, and so since I was young, hey, are you gonna be as good as your daddy, George? And gosh, that puts pressure on you,
It's that pressure.
So,
Yeah.
and I was doing great until my dad would show up to a match and I would lose. I don't know why. Mentally, I could hear my dad. There would be a lot of people watching, and I could hear my dad, like I hear him. I missed a dumb shot, and he was, oh man, I could hear that. And then I would
Right.
lose it. Well,
And here you are in
that,
a different direction now, right? I mean,
yeah,
you've got your business now
yeah.
and
And
it's yeah.
yeah, and you know what I did? One of the things that I did is, is perseverance, and also the word faith. People, if you were going to describe or give the definition of faith is the certainty of what you want. And I was certain that I was still, at that point, I was already in my 12 years cancer free. But it's the certainty of what you want if you take action. So
Yeah,
it's like now we're gonna have New Year's resolution. This everybody has amazing intentions, but if you don't take action, those intentions become illusions. And that's
correct.
the same thing with faith. So I would say, this is gonna work. This is going to work. For a reason, God gave me the chance to sing the song. I was the only survivor, Charles, of all the people that started with me. So I was having sometimes survival, uh, you know, guilt. But all that helped me, it made me stronger. So here I
Yeah.
am, and I see my bank account going lower and lower. There's
In the
no
wrong
revenue,
direction.
no revenue, no revenue coming in. My wife, bless her soul, working really tough. But the kids were going to college. One way or another, we found ways. Two of them got scholarships, but the other ones didn't. And so all of this was at the same time. And I would somehow manage to have calm during the storm.
Yeah.
And I kept affirming, just like I learned how to do it with tennis. I started to tell myself on the present moment, I'm successful. I'm signing new clients, and
You're
so
gonna make it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But it
Yeah.
was it was 4 months into that I had my first client. I was
Mhm.
pricing for me was I was helped with the Health Coach Institute. I said, well, it's about your confidence with what you're doing. So
Yeah.
I knew myself because I have the authority. Hey, I survived an advanced cancer going natural, but it doesn't work that way. I had to gain confidence. So
Absolutely.
the first year, it was only, I think it was 4 people in 12 months that I hired for 3K. So that kind of offset the pipe of losing dollars in the bank. But
Sure.
every single one of those, every single dollar compared to what I was making as a CTO, I was so thankful for each of those dollars. And I said, man, I'm going to end up being the person that helps folks, that work with folks that are going through cancer or the threat of it. Because many people come to me now saying, hey, I don't want this to happen to me, happen to my brother, happen to my
Right.
mom, to my best
Yeah.
friend. Yeah, so it's all about
Yeah.
prevention as well.
I love
So,
it.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, and we can
Yeah.
talk
Love it.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I do.
That's great, man. Yeah. So, going through and you finally figured out you got your business model kind of smooth and moving along
Mhm.
here. So, what are expectations now for the next year or two? Where do you see yourself?
This for 2025, I decided I'm going to be more of an advocate. I mean, both, but of prevention. So I'm going to do some group coaching. I don't have enough hours. Thank God right now I'm working more on referrals and podcasts like
Great.
this. You're going to
Yeah.
share my information and I get clarity
Yeah.
calls, discovery calls. But
Yeah.
I want to break the 120K barrier. In the last 7 years, the most in terms of coaching, because I have other things there, that I'm managing to do. I still coach a company it's a software company in Miami, and
Nice.
that's a steady thing. Not so much, but it's a steady. It pays for the
Okay.
mortgage, and but my goal in next year is to pump up my premium package, and then for about more than 8 people at a time, eight clients at a good price, and then do group coaching for prevention. So
Love it.
between the two, I'm sure I'll break my goal, and probably
Love it. Yeah.
before the end of the year. But it is interesting because what I do, this holistic self. If people know, my wife says it all the time. I get clients that are really in a bad place. They're almost going to palliative care, and some others that say, look, I'm starting and but I'm looking into this, but I don't know if I
Mhm.
should quit my stuff. Like, no, you don't need to quit. See, this is something that is very interesting, and your audience would have access to this wonderful giveaway. You will too. Um, in there, I have a document that talks about the 13 rules of the mind, which is so powerful. If people really take one of those and practice it for a while, and then the other one, they will not get sick. And if they're sick, they will manage to
Mhm.
improve the speed of recovery, even if they stay with chemo and radio and all this stuff.
Right.
Because, one of the rules of the mind, which is very powerful, is that the mind, Charles, the mind goes to what is familiar, tends to go there. And for us in the West, what is familiar when we get a chronic disease, but let's say cancer, is to go running to an oncologist. There's no option whatsoever in our mind or
Yeah.
in our friend's mind. It's just a cultural thing. They got us there. Not only do we do that, but then little by little, we start giving our power, I told you, the gut feeling, we give that power to the doctor. And
Yeah.
then
That's
we
true.
become a patient. Oh, the doctor said. I don't have to. And guess, my friends, doctors are not nutritionists. They're not psychologists. They're oncologists. They're just not. They're not massage therapists, acupuncturists, and and so stuff that we should really know even before we get sick. There's
Yeah,
some
that's
great
true.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, you got
yeah.
this great stuff. You put this together. So tell us how we contact you and how do we get our hands on this, man? I'm excited.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna send you a link for my website. They can go there. I'll give you my Calendly.
Okay.
It's very tough to write the qualevita.com. Maybe I'll put it in the chat. But you
You
could
can
go
send
to
it to
my
me. I'll get it
yeah,
from your email and then I'll put it in the show notes for us so we'll have it
exactly,
in there.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but and that will include the link to the giveaway because I know
Okay.
we have a very short time, but I like to share something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Holistic coaching, by the way, Charles, we're not a physical body only. We have an emotional part of ourselves, an emotional
Absolutely.
body, a mental body, and a spiritual body. I call it the four legs of the table.
Mm-hmm.
One leg is emotional, the other one is a physical, mental, and a spiritual. If one of those legs is missing, or two of them, the table doesn't stand. We cannot eat on it. And the whole
Yeah.
thing in my protocol is to work on each of those
Yeah.
and let people know that if they manage not to have an inflamed body, acidity in their body, they will never be sick with any chronic disease, which, by the way, almost 48% of our nation has one or two chronic diseases now. I did
Mm-hmm.
this research in September. I was invited to speak in Toronto, Ontario, and I did the Canada one too. And they're pretty similar, not as bad as us, but they have a much smaller population. But we do have a problem here. I mean,
Yes, we do.
half our nation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why I want to get into also prevention. But
I think that's smart too, right? Because if you get prevention going, you can help people not follow that downward spiral into, the unhealthy things that Americans get into, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
needless to say, the impact it has in the workforce for
Yeah,
corporations,
absolutely.
for entrepreneurs, for
Right.
employees. I mean, it is, we're not a healthy nation. If
Yeah.
we keep this
100,
trend,
100%. We are
yeah,
definitely not a healthy nation. And it's getting worse over the years. And I'm sure you see the studies, you do the
yes,
research that it's year over year, just getting worse and worse.
yes.
Yeah.
There's a scary one there that I found. And if we keep the trend that we are going right now with being way overweight and obese, if we don't change our trends, half of women and half of men in the United States will be obese by the year
Yeah.
2030.
Yeah.
I
And we could go
mean,
on a whole tangent about this too with the food. It's none of our food's
oh
healthy.
yeah,
I mean,
that's
we could a whole another interview
another
about
episode.
the
Yeah,
quality of our food. And we know that's part of the problem is, our
absolutely.
quality of food, our type of food, and how much food we eat. the whole
Absolutely.
thing. Yeah. Now, do you touch on that in your studies as well?
Oh,
The types
yes,
of food? Yeah, gotcha. That's
definitely.
great.
Because I became a nutritionist as well. And actually, I specialize in the digestive tract for a
Yeah,
reason. Because
yeah,
everybody says, and this is true, all disease starts in the gut. But how, why?
yes,
What do you mean? And I have to share this with with the audience. In terms of nutrition and digestion, 25% is what you eat.
yeah,
75% is who you are when you're eating. Are you eating in 10 minutes and chewing only 6 times and swallow your food that's not supposed to be swallowed that fast? You know, all this stuff. And if you do that day after day, meal after meal, you will get a medical bill saying, hey,
yeah.
you know, you got diabetes, you have cancer, because the stomach does not know how to process, what to do with
Yes.
unprocessed food. Digestion starts in the mouth. So you need to make sure, especially depending on what you're chewing, that you chew at least 20 times to 30 times, which by the way, it will allow you to really enjoy the flavors. But if you
Yeah,
go
I got to
somewhere
do a
and you,
shout out to, not to cut you off, I got to do a shout out to Bruce Lee for that because I read his book and he talked about that. I think it's 23 times
that guy was
per
amazing.
side you chew, you know?
Yeah,
And then by the
yeah.
time you finish chewing those times, you have nothing left in your mouth because it's been dissolved. Correct?
Oh, exactly. And you hardly
Yeah,
just send the real nutrients. Because
yeah,
here's what happens when the stomach gets this bomb there and it doesn't know what to do. The only answer it has is to send this stuff to fat. And what happens with fat over time, it becomes acidic. It brings it, and that goes through and it starts making inflaming your tissue and your body. But not only that, because it didn't process, the digestion did not go well. You're not getting any nutrients. You're basically hungry 30 minutes later, and there
that's
you go
correct.
again. You eat fast, and we're killing ourselves, you
The
know?
vicious cycle, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
George, I thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to hear more from you. This has
yeah.
been great. Audience, please click on his links, listen to this podcast. I want everybody to really hear what you have to say and follow you because I think this is important. And I had
Yes.
a couple of people on who are holistic health coaches, and I have some vegans who come on and they talk about, the types of foods. And this is great
Hmm.
that you tie into all of those other interviews that I've actually, have conducted. And I love the progression I'm going through with this, that I'm getting more how it's all puts together with how
Yes.
we have all these people who can coach and teach us the better
Hmm.
quality of life through what we're doing
Man,
here. I
exactly.
love it. I love it.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. And you
Absolutely.
have an awesome 2025. Keep helping people through your podcast. That's a great, powerful tool to
It
influence
is.
people. I commend you.
Thank you
So,
so much. And that's my
yeah.
goal with this. Part of my business, is interviewing people to get their story, to share their story. I want to help promote them. That's part of
Hmm.
what I do, is I want to share stories with the world because, this is so beneficial to all the people in this world, small business owners like us, who can really help the world. I love what you do and I love what I do.
Yes, amen. It's a win-win. Thank
Absolutely.
God. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Absolutely,
Uh,
George. Thanks again for coming on the Q.A.C. Team Podcast. I appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
Likewise. Take care.
Thank you so much. Take care. Have a great rest of the day. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. Bye.
You've been listening to the QAC Team podcast with your host, Charles Luttrell. Connect with us on the web at qacteam.com, TikTok at QAC Team, Facebook and Instagram at QAC.team. Thanks for your support.